So good morning, everybody. It's good to be here with this webinar for the Women Growing Small Business in Australia group. Today I'm going to be chatting with Linda Conyard, and Linda's going to be leading the webinar. So just a bit of an introduction to Linda. She works as a professional mentor with individuals and businesses throughout Australia. She's a certified Gestalt psychotherapist and family constellation facilitator, and has studied meditation as a Buddhist practitioner, which supports her work with her clients. So she's a multi-talented lady. So I just want to also add that I'm really delighted Linda kind of responded to my call out for women within the group who might want to lead a webinar like this for the group. So, I'm really keen to hear from more members of the group who might like to do this. So I'm not going to say a lot more about Linda. I'm going to let her explain more about her background and what she does and how she assists entrepreneurs. So welcome, Linda.
Thank you, Bev, and I really do appreciate the opportunity to share this information with the group, and I hope that, at least they can take away something that they can implement straight away.
Yeah, definitely. So, it sounds like a very interesting topic.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, it's certainly been an interesting process for me, that's for sure. So, I'd like to welcome everyone, and I appreciate the valuable time that you're giving here. It would be great if you could eliminate any distractions such as your phones or email, and seeing as you've committed the time, let's just make the most of it together and try and make it as valuable as we possibly can for you. And I just want to make sure before we get into it that you've got some pen or paper, because you're going to need that a little bit later, because I've just got a little exercise for us to explore. And today what I'm going to speak about is, we'll take maybe 40 minutes maybe, and then I'm going to allow a little bit of time at the end for some questions, and Bev's going to help me with that. She's going to just keep track of any questions that come. So if you do have a question, I just want to invite you to pop it into the chat box, and then Bev will let us know what we've got there to deal with at the end of it. And today, as you can see from the screen, that I'm talking about inner work for entrepreneurs. So what we'll cover today is I'm going to explain a little bit more about what I mean when I talk about inner work. And I'm going to look a little bit about, what we usually do versus what might serve us better. And also I want to touch a little bit on why I think entrepreneurs should do their inner work. What's the benefit to us as entrepreneurs to do this work? So before I do that, I just want to share a little background about my own work with you before I go any further into the talk. As Bev said, my name's Linda Conyard, and my business is Rainbow Atma. I'm a trauma and transgenerational therapist, and I've come to understand a lot about the trauma that I've experienced in my life, and recovering from these traumatic experiences has formed the ground from which I now am able to support people to recover from their own trauma. And in the process of recovering from my trauma, I've seen how unresolved and generational patterns showed up in my business. And from this learning, I now support other business owners to free themselves from the same chains that might bind them. So I have a master's degree in Gestalt psychotherapy, and I'm planning to undertake a PhD researching the long-term trauma effects of survivors of retinoblastoma, which is a rare childhood cancer. And then my interest in this area is my second daughter was diagnosed with this disease when she was 6 months old. That was 1988, so a long time ago. I've basically been studying since 2004. I was a bit of a late starter. And I lead constellation workshops and retreats, and I've developed a couple of programs that support people through their own processes. I've been interviewed for Breast Cancer Rehabilitation Summit and Retinoblastoma Awareness Series. And I've significantly invested in my own therapy and business coaching over the years. And I've been in business since about 2006. So for me, I'd like to just share a little bit about what I mean when I say inner work. So inner work is when we connect with our internal aspect of ourselves. So for me, it's like a healing dialogue that we have. We do have an inner dialogue always, and it's not always pretty. I'm sure some of you can really relate to that we can be quite critical or even, damaging to ourselves. But the inner work I'm speaking about is the healing dialogue that happens internally, that can happen internally. It's about building awareness of what happens within our body It's creating a healthy relationship between our mind, body, and spirit. And it's connecting to the power within that has got us to where we are today. So even if we're a little bit dysfunctional, we've still got we've done a lot of things to be able to survive whatever we've survived, to be able to be living the life that we're living today. So some of the ways that are well-known ways that I imagine people would connect with inner work is journaling. So most of us would have either tried it and been successful or not with journaling. And what's really clear for me is that the answers are always within us. So whenever I work with my clients, I look at facilitating a process where they find their own answers, because they're the answers that they need. And by finding a way to deeply connect and do our inner work, we'll be setting ourselves free of the struggle, and we'll start to experience flow in our business and in our life. So for me, it's like, where do we actually separate our business from ourselves? If we're the owner and we are the business, I reckon that's pretty difficult to do. So relationships are essential to our business. So when we talk about relationships, to be successful in business, we have to build relationships. I'm sure you would have heard many times people saying things like, people do business with those who they know, like, and trust. So just to reflect personally for yourselves on, how do you do business? So if you go to do business with someone, do you select someone that you already know, like, and trust? And if you don't know anyone, do you then ask someone you know, like, and trust who they would go with? So there's a lot in relationships and how important it is for businesses. People talk about good service, and they also talk about bad service. So our relationships are important. And as business owners, there are many ways that we build our trust with people, or we share ourselves with people. One of those ways might be through our blog, where people get to know us better. Social media is an obvious way that we connect with people, and more this social media is becoming essential for businesses. I don't know if we could really be a business without that nowadays. So there's also physical events that we can go to, something like your Chamber of Commerce, local network meetings, and even this group that we're part of here. It's a way that we start to get to know each other, and we get to trust each other, and then we get to even refer for each other. There's one relationship, though, that I find is missing, and it's a relationship to self. Our focus more often is outward, looking at things like planning, procedures, strategy, structure. All these things are really important, but in this planning, sometimes it just turns into like something like this, and it gives me a headache, and I want to have a Bex and a lie down when I look at that. Some of you might be a little bit young to understand what a Bex is, so I'll just explain what that is. A Bex is like a powdered form of aspirin, and I know my grandmother was addicted to them, so that's what I was saying. It's a bit funny. So all jokes aside, what I'm saying is that it's not that we don't need to plan and have structure and strategy. We need to add in, and to be truly successful, we need to add in and do our own inner work. So maybe we should look at the real statistics of business. I'm sure some of you have probably seen this before or heard it before. So the real statistics of business are like 2.3% drop in the number of new businesses from 2015 to 2016. Business conditions for startups have really decreased. So there was like 10,000 less businesses in the previous quarter. Like, that's a huge amount when we think about these numbers. The survey says that the number of business failures rose by 11% in the third quarter. That's an increase of 42% on the previous quarter. Like, that's just amazing. These figures just amaze me. Small business accounts for 97% of Australian business. That is incredible. According to the Bureau of Statistics, more than 60% of small businesses cease to operate within the first 3 years of starting. Like 60% of small businesses, look at those numbers from the previous slide. That's a lot of people and their families that have this devastation of their business not succeeding. ASIC, in its 2011-2012 report, said that 44% of business failure was due to poor strategic management, 40% was inadequate cash flow or high cash use, and 33% suffered from trading losses. Nowhere in these reports does it talk about inner work or the importance of inner work. So what we usually do when, you know, there's something that we're doing wrong, if we keep seeing these figures, and these are not new, these figures keep repeating themselves. It doesn't get much better. Over the time that I've been looking at it, it doesn't get any better. So we're doing something wrong to keep seeing these repeating figures of failure. So think about, if you wanted to fix something in your business, what would you actually seek out? Usually what I find is that we normally look at doing more online training in what we've already done, or we're looking for coaching in areas that we've already looked at. So we tend to keep doing the same thing. So that old saying, if you continue to do what you've always done, you'll continue to get the same results that you've always got. It's very relevant for here. Some of you may know this fellow, Tony Robbins, a little bit famous. Anyway, he says, success is 80% psychology and 20% mechanics. And when you think about those reports that I just mentioned before, it talks all about mechanics. There's nothing about the psychology. Tony Robbins is an extremely successful man, and he says 80% psychology. That's how you get success. That's a big flip for what we usually do in business practice. So it seems we really need to change our attention dramatically to achieve success if we're to believe Tony Robbins. We need to spend 80% of our focus doing our inner work. That's an incredible change to what I hear most businesses doing. Leaders invest in building the capacity to change their psychological and emotional state. That's an interesting statement. So it seems that we need to look where we invest our time and money, considering professional development. Tony is the success he is today because of the amount of inner work he's done. All of our excuses for why we failed at something are based on a belief that failure is a lack of resources. Didn't have enough money, didn't have enough time, didn't have enough of the right people, didn't have the right technology, and on and on and on we can go. I think it's really important here to remember that our resourcefulness, if we can't find the resources in ourselves, then find them in someone else, like me, who can help you with that. He says failure is not a lack of resources, it's a lack of resourcefulness, and I couldn't agree more. To me, Tony Robbins is a classic example of success through inner work. So maybe we could do a little bit of an experiment about what it might feel like to do a little bit of inner work. So if you'll bear with me and you'll help, just play the game for a little bit. If you could grab your pen and paper, and I'll just give you a second to do that. And then we're just going to do this little experiment. And I'm going to ask you a question, and I'm going to ask you to answer it two different ways. So with your pen and paper there in front of you ready, if you can just answer this question from your logical thinking, rational brain. So my question is, why are you in business? So if you could just write that down and type in the chat box done when you've got that answer. And I'll get you, Bev, to let me know when that's coming up.
Okay, yep, done.
Done. Thank you, beautiful. So now if you can pop your pen down, and we're just going to take a little bit of time just to center ourselves. So if you can just sit in your chair with your back straight, or however you're sitting, straighten your back. And we're just going to take a few deep breaths together. So breathing in through your nose, out through your nose, and making the exhale longer than the inhale. So breathing in and out. In again. And out. One more. In. And out. I'm going to ask you to bring your focus to feeling your feet on the floor. Really feeling them flat on the floor. Feel the weight of your body on your sitting bones in the chair. So feel your butt in the chair. Continue to breathe deeply through your nose and out through your nose. Straighten your spine as you sit in your chair, breathing deeply. Now place your attention on the heart space in your chest. So that's about in the middle of your chest. And take a few deep breaths into this heart space. And I'll give you some time to do that. Now from this heart space, can you please write the answer to the question, why are you in business? And please write the first answer that comes. Try not to intellectualize it or analyze it. Just allow it to come. And when you've got your answer, can you do the same thing and write done in the chat box, please? I'll just get you to let me know, Bev, when that's happening, when everyone's
Sure. Yep, okay, done.
done. Great. So now I have a curiosity whether people came up with the same response. So if in the chat box you can say, yes, you did come up with the same response, or no, your second response was different. I just have a little bit of a curiosity around that.
Okay, yes. It's done.
Done. So did people get the same response, or did they get something different the second time?
Yeah, different. Different.
Okay, cool.
Yes.
Awesome. So for me, the importance of entrepreneurs doing the inner work is that we can only really reach potential to the level that we do our own inner work. The more inner work that we do, the more powerfully we can show up for our clients and in our business. So doing the inner work also moves us from a place of scarcity to a place of abundance. And it also takes us from what can I get out of this to a place more of service, like what can I give to this? So it puts us in more of an authentic place. Inner work will give us the exact guidance we need to succeed. It is the key to success. It will create flow we need to align with our higher purpose. Inner work is our internal GPS. There's no place for overwhelm when we do our inner work. What it gives us is clarity, and it will make everything we do much easier. So I'm sure as business owners, you've experienced where you've got your fingers in so many pies and you become so ineffective. Nothing really gets done well. By doing this inner work, that changes. It really narrows us in to what's important and what keeps us on our path. It keeps us on the right direction. You won't create new life opportunities unless you're prepared to risk opening a few new gates. And when you do your inner work, you are opening new gates. You're opening new pathways. You're opening new intelligences to come into your consciousness. So the truth is, if you don't do the inner work, even the best planning, strategy, and coaching won't give you the success that you truly innately know that you have within you. You may miss the success that's tied up in unresolved, repeating patterns. To create sustainable change, that has to happen from the inside out. So let's have another look at something that is really important for business owners, and it comes up a lot in, working with business owners. It's money. So money usually has a lot of baggage around it, especially people who are in the helping professions. They're hopeless at charging what they're worth. It's hard for them to even accept money. It becomes a real dilemma in business. So let's have a look at a few common money misbeliefs. So it's like things like, I have to work really hard for my money. Money doesn't go on trees. I remember I heard that as a kid. If I charge what I want, I won't have any clients. Others charge that, but I couldn't. It's hard to charge for something that I enjoy. And that's a real dilemma sometimes when your work doesn't feel like work. Sometimes people can get into the place of not really feeling great about charging for that. Also, when people are new into a business, they feel like they can't charge what others charge. And if they do charge what they really want to, they feel that people will think they're big noting themselves. So then, where do these beliefs come from? So I'll just share a personal story to put some relevance around it. So I was raised in a violent home, and the meaning that I made of money was that money equals love. So that was because my father was not emotionally available in a good way, and that, the only way that he expressed it was he'd give you a couple of bucks to take to the tuck shop. So that in my little mind, I created this money equals love. So that was okay to survive that part of my life. But then, if you think about that in business, what that might look like, it's like, I don't deserve, like it becomes a whole lot of things around not deserving and how can I ask for. Many, many things start to show up here. So as a child, I heard things like, we don't have enough money doesn't grow on trees, you have to work hard for your money, rich people weren't nice. And I don't remember actually asking for too much. So if we translate that into business, in the beginning, it was super difficult for me to accept money for services. I felt like I wasn't enough. I'd studied Ayurveda, but I hadn't fully implemented Ayurveda 100% in my life. It was a process. And I felt like I didn't deserve to ask for what I was offering out to other people. At that time, I couldn't see that even the steps that I'd made put me in front of people that were coming to me. I just saw that I wasn't enough and I couldn't ask for the money. So what I ended up doing was that I ended up hiding away in my business. So I was doing other jobs and I was sort of playing with my business a bit. I hadn't really stepped into it properly. So there was no way out from this apart from doing my inner work. And I had to correct my money story. So my story has changed so much that I'm averaging about 6 new clients a month. And I'm not even trying. This is just through relationships. It's just coming because I don't have the same stuckness within me or unresolvedness within me that I used to have. I've also realized that my self-worth has nothing to do with my net worth. I'm going to say that again. My self-worth has nothing to do with my net worth. So this is a common area that gets in the way of business owners. And it took me quite a while to actually unpack this deep enough that I could actually change my money story. The other thing that I'd like to share here is that I made my business my sanctuary. Because of my home life was filled with a lot of trauma, there was no place to really rejuvenate at home. So I made my business my sanctuary, and this was at a real subconscious level. So then imagining, if I've got a sanctuary, my business is my sanctuary, it's not going to be a place that I want a lot of people to come into, is it? So it's going to be not as profitable or not as successful as it could be because I needed to be something different. So then subconsciously, I'm wondering what the hell's going on? Like, I know my stuff. I know I'm good at what I do. How come it's not doing what I would expect it to do? So when I unpacked this for myself, it became really clear that I needed to find other ways to rejuvenate myself and let my business be my business, not my sanctuary. So I'm hoping that makes sense and some people are connecting with what I'm saying here. It's like sometimes we don't really know what we make our business. So what I want to say to you basically is that everything you need is within you. We all have a core story. We all have stuff in our lives that will be unresolved in us, and it will show up in our businesses. This story gets in the way of our success, and of achieving what we really truly desire, it gets in the way of us actually living on purpose and in our purpose. When we can unravel this story, then we're able to stop aligning ourselves with the old image. And we start to really open up and allow this authentic self to come into the world. And this is where people need us. This is where they can connect deeply to who we are, because we are just in our own being fully. So when we live with the truth of who we really are, then we live with authenticity. And when that happens, that's when people recognize us. It's like, have you ever walked into a room and you get a feeling already that, oh my gosh, something's not right here? Or you walk into a room and you go, oh man, this is a great place to be. So this is the sense that I'm talking about, that people connect with us and they know that we're a right fit. They know they're in the right spot. They can just feel it. So that's when they connect to our conscious level of authenticity, and they're able to connect with the confidence that you naturally have in just being yourself. So research shows that if we write down our learnings, then they stay with us. So I want to give you a little bit of time just to write down one thing that you've learned today from what I've talked about with you. One thing that you might be able to take away and maybe implement or test out in your own business today. So I'll just give you a couple of seconds just to be able to do that. Just to reflect over what I've said and just jot down a few things that you'd like to either explore more or have a go at doing in your own business. Hopefully that's enough time for you to jot down a couple of things.
Yes, that's fine.
So I really want to just open it up for questions. If there's any questions that people might have, or Bev, you can see that have come in about what I've shared, and just giving you maybe another way of looking at, your business and what might be missing in your business, what might be missing in the success that you're actually looking to achieve.
Okay, well, I can give you a couple of comments just from what sort of jumped out at people. Rejuvenate yourself elsewhere. Your business should not be your sanctuary. I think that's a really important one. Actually, it hit home with me a little bit, I think, because going back to when you asked us to write down, to do the breathing exercise and then write from the heart why you're in business. It probably was a little bit about that sanctuary, actually, in my case. So that's interesting. Interesting.
That's right. And when your business is your sanctuary, it can't be the income producing, and which is what business needs. That we need the income to be able to keep doing the work that we're meant to do in the world. Yes.
Definitely. And the other one that you've got to risk opening a few new gates. I think that's a really nice analogy, isn't it? Very nice metaphor. Yeah.
And sometimes that can be quite daunting for people to start that exploration. But what I've seen many, many times over and over again is that it becomes quite an exciting journey, or, looking at what's behind the next gate. And it certainly is for me, and I continue to do my own work. I think that, when I take my last breath, then I'll stop doing that, because I think there's more and more always to explore and to open up to. So, it is a good analogy, and often what we find there is gold.
So questions. So you've a couple of things there. I guess rejuvenate yourself elsewhere. So that's the rejuvenation part. That's the doing the inner work part. So you separate that from your business, or not?
Yeah. Well, I think the inner work, it has an impact in your life and in your business. And like I said before, as business owners, we can't really separate ourselves out from our business. We are our business. So whatever's in us that's causing us some angst or whatever will be showing up in our business somehow. And it could be lack of clients, it could be lack of money, it could be just feeling stuck. Sometimes I know I felt really just stuck in my business. I couldn't move anywhere. And, you know, if I look into my life, there's a stuckness in my life. I go, okay, so if I explore the stuckness and do the inner work around that, then my business is able to open up and is able to move again.
Okay, so when you... Oh, sorry. No, you go. You go ahead.
What I mean by I had made my business my sanctuary. So instead of being, and I got rejuvenation from being in that space. So what I did was I took that out. So I'd take myself on mini retreats regularly. So I get my rejuvenation from there. I also have a little bit of land, and I've got horses and animals and stuff and nature. So I also take myself there, and that's how I rejuvenate myself. So then when I step into my business now, I'm stepping fully into the work that I want to do in the world, which has come from resolving a lot of the trauma and the issues that have stayed within me. So that's formed the ground for my business, and that's why I do the work that I do today. Does that make more sense?
Yeah. Okay. So when you say doing inner work, what does that look like for people? Like, what are your, let's say, and you coach business owners, so what would your clients be doing when they're doing the inner work? What does it look like?
Good question. Yeah, that's a good question. What would it look like? So it might be that someone comes to me and they're finding that they want to do some push their business in one direction, and it just keeps getting stopped. It doesn't go. So in a session, I might set up representations for what wants to be achieved, and then I'll ask the client to check in their body what they're feeling. So it always comes back to the body, because all of this is held in the body. Trauma is trapped in the nervous system of the body. So to even think that we can, you know, resolve things just by talking is a big mistake, because that's not the truth. So to learn to listen to your body, like we created the dialogue with the heart center, it's like you start to create dialogue with where you feel the stuckness. So if there's a resistance in someone wanting to take their business to a certain direction, you'll feel that in your body. So I'll ask the person to go, where do you feel it? And that's where we'll work. So we might start a dialogue with that part of the body and then unwrap where that might be. And it might lead back to where, I don't know, an example of where the mother would never listen to the child. Or it could go many, many places. I never know. But it's like that's how we start to unravel and then put into place, excuse me, put back into place the past. So where the past is in the present, we put it back in the past. Sorry.
Do you want to grab a drink? You're I've just muted you while you have a cough. If you need to get a drink. Go grab a drink. I've just muted you, Linda, so go grab a drink if you need to. Oh dear. I've just gotten over the flu myself, so I can sympathise. I'll just pause the recording as well. Okay, we just had a little pause there. Linda's having a bit of a coughing fit. There's been a lot of flu around, so I totally sympathise. So Linda, if you can, just close off really quickly.
Yes, sorry about that. Very sorry, yes. I was wondering whether I would make it through, and I didn't quite.
You almost
did. I know. So basically, thank you very much for listening, and I hope it was helpful. And my email is there if you sorry, my email is there if you want to email me. Sorry, if you have any questions. I also have my next program starting September, October,
Cool.
That's on the website. But if you've got any questions, please, I'm happy to answer them. And yeah, just appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
Yeah, pleasure. I'll just mute you now so you can have a cough. Okay, so thanks very much, Linda, for presenting that. It's really interesting work, really fascinating. So I find it really fascinating how we all accumulate so much knowledge and skills, and then as we get older, it sort of takes shape and takes form and turns into a business, and how people bring such unique expertise into their business. So you've got this wonderful array of skills there that are helping people in business, which tends to be a very practical space, but you're bringing in the other side of it, which is really critical. And when you look at the statistics, as you did at the start, of people who don't make it through in a business, there's so much assistance that's needed with people to get through, and oftentimes it's the inner stuff that slows them down or doesn't allow them to maximise the potential of what they're offering to the world. So that's awesome. So I will close off the recording now, and I'll post some more information about your course, Linda, into the LinkedIn group. So thank you very much for your presentation, and we'll talk soon.